All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to This Week in Base Hit. I am joined today by a special guest, more special than clone. It is Hardy. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Uh, was supposed to be with Clone, but he was gone on Friday, and then I was going to do something with Ballmer's actually, and we'll do that down the road because he is Ballmer's is marching towards defending his TCL title right now. So if he gets into the World Series, I want to talk to him then. Uh, um, you're in TCL now?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the playoffs in that league, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I finally built the team back to a playoff team, and then we've gotten smoked the last 2 years in the playoffs by the same team. And I don't actually know.
Who owns it?
It's Hume.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
his team has blitzed me twice in 2 years. So
Yeah, that league, I had a run. Like if you look at my seasons, like I was kind of a tank and banker for a while. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, early on it was like that. Um, Back in like 2009, real life 2009, and you can see it in my seasons. Whereas like I had a nice run of playoffs, and I kind of went down for 3 seasons of 6, 5, 4 up, and then had a run like that, and then I kind of evened off and plateaued, and now I'm in just like this like 30 season mediocrity where I'm like third
mhm.
or fourth, and I just cannot figure out a way around it. And it's been very frustrating. And it's tough in that league because when you get into that, it's really hard to get out because everybody's so active. And I haven't been as active in the trade market as I need to be competitive there. So I don't know. TCL has been kind of a frustrating league for me the last couple of years.
Yeah, I could see that.
You got to be
Uh,
super active.
That's what it seems like. I mean, I know there for a while when I was rebuilding, it was pretty easy to, not really pay much attention and
Yeah. Yeah.
just work on, just get any sort of value for the future. And yeah, now that I'm here, it's like now I'm up against the cap and there's other just things to think about.
Yeah, and and once we switched to a hard cap, that changed everything for me too. It like you got to be really dialed in that league, team
hmm
wise, top to bottom. And Ballers has done a good job with his team, so um, I wouldn't
That's
be
what I
surprised.
still feel like I'm new enough that I don't know who owns what team yet, or I don't even fully understand. I don't know fully who's in my division right now, other than just I keep losing to
Hume,
Dublin, so
yeah,
they're my biggest rival at this point.
he's been around for a long time. This might be his number one league too, I would think, with because he's successful.
hmm
Um,
That's a name I've seen plenty before. I don't know how many times I've actually been in a league with them before, but I've seen the name around quite a
Yeah,
bit.
I've never talked to him one on one. I'll have to maybe he'll come on the podcast sometime.
Yeah.
So he's in the league championship right now too, right?
hmm
Yeah. And I don't think the league championships have started yet,
No.
um but yeah, so that's your TCL rivalry and then your real baseball rivalry. I don't do you consider it because you're a Cardinals fan, obviously, do you consider it the Cubs or the Brewers?
Depends who's better.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, the Cubs are always going to be the rival of the Cardinals just because it's been forever. I
Yep.
mean, the Brewers, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the Brewers moved from the AL to the NL. So, I mean, the Brewers, when they were good, like they were the biggest rival, but it would be, it just depends on what year it is. So, like
Yeah.
right now, I'm sure it would be, but the Cardinals are kind of down. So, uh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, if you remember when we were talking in the off season, we were debating. I was like, I think the Brewers are going to win the Central, and you were like, no, the Cardinals are going to win the Central because they had just come up with some pitching. You know, obviously they had Sonny Gray, they brought Lance Lynn back. They had what's his name, the other old guy. Uh,
Yeah, the oldest team in the majors, it feels
Yeah,
like.
yeah. It was like they went back to the well one too many times with some of those guys.
hmm
To be fair, Lance Lynn was one of the best pitchers in the league last year, and he was 33, I think. So,
No, not last year. Last year he was bad.
oh,
He's
it's the year
actually
before.
few years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
This year he's actually been fine. It's just the pitching has been fine. The offense has been what's completely fallen apart. And that
Yeah.
I
Which,
never ever could have predicted.
yeah, it was surprising. Like you could see signs that Arenado was starting to age a little bit, but Goldschmidt was like, yeah,
Yep.
you would have thought he would have been close to what he was last year, and he
Yeah, I
wasn't.
mean, he was a step down last year from his MVP season the year before, but
But of
that
course
was
he
a
was.
step up from all his normal seasons. So it's like, yeah, I expect him to do a little worse than he was last year, but he took a huge step backwards so far.
He's leveled out a little bit, but the first half of the year he was. It was almost like to the point where it's like if he wasn't Goldschmidt, there was no chance he wouldn't have gotten benched.
Hmm.
But they let him play through it because he's Goldschmidt. Kind of like they
Yeah.
let
Well, and
Christian Yelich
I
play through it in 2021.
I still think his OPS is either right around or right below 700. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's still just not. It's just not there.
Yep. It's just,
Even with the building back up, which is crazy to say.
and you see him get fooled a lot, like on
Hmm.
like high fastballs and things like that. He's just swinging at stuff he would have never swung at before. So
Yep.
you wonder how much of it's psychological. I'm getting way too into the baseball part and not the rivalry part though. But for the Brewers, like we've talked about this before, or we talked about it earlier, but the Cubs will always be our enemy, but they're not always our rivalry, I guess is a way to put it, because like
Hmm.
they invade American Family Field, formerly Miller Park, and they're bad fans. I will say that publicly. They hate their own team. They hate like their talk radio is so funny to listen to because all they talk about is how much they hate all their players. They hate their GM. They have nothing good to say ever. Just,
Hmm.
and like Wisconsin, Packers, Bears, Brewers, Cubs. But I've always considered the Cardinals a rival because that goes back all the way to 1982 for me, when like the one of most people, well, a lot of people are old enough to remember it, but most people aren't. That was maybe the best 7 games World Series ever, in my estimation. It was so back and forth. There was so much unexpected stuff that happened. Like Willie McGee game-saving catch over the wall. Then he hit, uncharacteristically hit like this really clutch home run. Like that's where I kind of fell in hate love with Willie McGee still to this day. Um, and went 7 games, and uh, I just saw Robin Yount's 50th anniversary of his rookie game was 2 days ago. And so he was being interviewed by the Brewers. And, when people say, would you change anything in your career? People are always like, no, 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 no. He had a different answer. He
Really?
said, yeah, he's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have changed like 3 things about Game 7 of the 1982 World Series. Like, and that's really indicative of Brewer fans everywhere. Like that 82 World Series is so stuck in our head because it was the closest we've ever come to a world championship. And the
Hmm.
Cardinals have had so much success that you guys probably don't think about the 82 World Series very much, but for Brewer fans, it's huge. So the Cardinals have always been like the rivalry that we have to overcome.
Yeah, yeah. I think the Cardinals are similar with 85, with
Oh, the Royals?
yeah, the series that got away basically, and you blame it on the call or whatever, and then they just fell apart after that. The Denkinger, I think that was 85, right?
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
No,
was born right around then, so I know of it. I didn't watch those games
because
or
it was the Orioles in '83, or was it maybe it was the Royals in '84. I knew exactly what you were talking about though.
because we lost in 87 also, but I think that was not the
So
one.
what was the deal with the Royal series? The what
We
call?
were Cardinals were up 3-2 in the series, and then game 6, Don Denkinger made a horrific call at first base. I think
Oh,
it's
you even remember the umpire's name?
everyone knows the umpire's name. I mean,
Yeah, that's a good one then.
that's
If you know the umpire's
yeah,
name and still hate
yeah.
him.
I mean, it was if you look at a replay now, it wouldn't have even taken a replay. It would have taken just go to another umpire to get the call correct because it was not even close. It was, I mean, this much off the
It was a
base,
throw to first.
and he called him safe, and he was out by, several.
Oh,
That would have been out
oh,
number
it was so
one.
bad. You were like, is this guy getting paid off?
It was out number one in the ninth, and then I think they dropped a foul ball or something. They basically just completely fell apart to lose that game. They were ahead at the time, I believe.
Oh,
This
so
is
that's
this
kind of like the
this is where it's
86
been a while
series with
since
the
I've looked
Mets,
back at it.
where
Yeah, it was.
Boston fell apart and
Yeah.
it just kept getting worse.
Well, and then it's like, well, the Cardinals still had game seven, and they just got destroyed in that game. So it was
Yeah.
like that. That was kind of the turning point that made it went from, oh, we're getting ready to win the World Series to it's just gone right there. And that's looked at as the turning point.
What's
Like I
his
said,
name? David
this
Pritt?
is before me being a Cardinals fan. I
Yeah.
know about it because
Everybody
I've been a
talks about it.
Cardinals fan since like 90 was when I started, being able to understand what baseball was. But um, yeah,
So
I
this
know
comes up
of it.
every time the Cardinals play the Royals still to this day, probably.
Mhm. Well, it was interesting because we for a while, me and some buddies would go to different ballparks and watch the Cardinals, and we went to Kansas City a few times because
Oh,
it's
it's an
relatively
in-state thing
close.
too. I didn't even put that together initially.
Yep.
So that makes it a
So
lot
we
worse.
we go to Kansas City, and this is when Kansas City was terrible. The
Yeah.
Cardinals would go there and destroy them basically. And like after the game, you'd hear these drunk Royals fans who were younger than me talking about, oh,
Talking about 85.
85, 85. I was like, you weren't even born yet, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Uh,
I was
yeah,
like, I
that
was one. I don't, what are you talking about?
it still breaks my heart because when the Royals won again, I guess it's been like 10 years ago now, they did it with Ned Yost, and the Brewers fired Ned Yost, and all Brewers fans were upset about it because it clearly was not his fault. He was just getting scapegoated. We had the
Yeah.
second lowest payroll in the league, and he was still getting us to the playoffs. And so like we were really mad that Ned Yost got fired. And then sure enough, he goes to the Royals, wins the World Series, and it's like, what did you do? And then
Mhm.
after that, we had back-to-back managers. Dale Swaim took over for Ned Yost, had success, and then got hired by the Cubs to be their manager. Then we
I
got Craig
remember that.
Counsell, had a bunch of success, and then he got hired by the Cubs. And so that's why I say like the Cubs are
The
the
enemies.
enemy. They're just straight
Yeah,
up. They're just straight up enemies.
that's
Um,
funny.
yep.
I didn't think about that. I remember the Dale
Yeah,
Swam was
Swaim.
it or
Yep.
something? Yeah, I remember him moving from one to the other. I
And he
didn't
was
think
a
about the
and both of those
council was
guys,
the same.
Ned Yost, Dale Swaim, Craig Counsell, all three were Brewers players. And so like they had a ton of history with the
Hmm.
Brewers. And for them to go to the Cubs is just a kick. And like you feel like they're doing it on purpose,
Yeah,
just giving them big
yeah,
checks.
yeah.
Yep.
We can
So
do this, so we're gonna keep doing it to our little brother up a little bit north of us.
and Craig Counsell like was born and raised in Whitefish Bay in Wisconsin, and so he's like a
Oh
Wisconsin
wow.
legend. And so the first game that the Cubs Brewers played this year, he came out to argue a call, and I've never heard a crowd boo as loud as the Brewers fans were booing Craig Counsell. It was
Hmm.
brutal. Um,
It's
so
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. But you said you're not a Bears fan.
No.
But the Packers Bears obviously have like the longest running rivalry um in
Hmm.
football. Yeah.
I know. Well, in junior high, when I first got into football a little bit, I was a Brett Favre fan.
Oh,
So
nice.
and my dad liked the Packers from like the '60s. So I started as that, and then when he left, I I kind of lost interest in football as a whole. And then now when St. Louis was here, I kind of started. Oh, they were so bad. They were really good, and then when I moved down to the St. Louis area, they were really terrible. And
Oh,
then
it
they
was right after
slowly.
the greatest show on turf time,
Mhm.
the Kurt Warner days. Torrey
Yeah, I mean,
Holt. Yeah.
I was 100 miles away at that point, so I was a fan, but I wasn't really into it that much.
Yeah.
And then when I actually moved down here for school, the Rams were so terrible. It was a joke already at that point. And they finally started to get good, or at least decent, to where they
Oh,
were
I moved.
respectable, and they moved. And it's like, now I'm just not going to have a team.
Yeah, dude, that's one of the most tragic stories too. is like they moved 3 times. Well, I guess the Raiders moved that many times too. They were even worse because they went from Oakland to LA, back to Oakland to Las
Hmm.
Vegas.
Well,
Yeah.
the Cardinals used to be in St. Louis too. The
Oh yeah,
Arizona
that's right.
Cardinals, they moved. I don't remember when that was before I knew of it. I know my older brother had a Arizona or a St. Louis Cardinals football helmet.
Yeah, that
But
was
by the
probably
time I got it, it was
83.
so worn off you couldn't even see the Cardinal logo anymore.
Oh yeah, that's right. When
I
did
think that was probably in the 80s that
I was I
that
said
move happened.
83. I moved to Arizona. Oh no, it was 88. That was
Hmm.
later than I thought. Yeah, so wow, St. Louis has taken a couple kicks to the shin there. They
Hmm.
deserve a
Well,
football team
because
too, right?
the old Bush Stadium, the previous Bush Stadium was a dual use. It was both football and baseball. I guess they could move the bleachers on the lower deck or something like
Yeah,
that
there in
and turn
Candlestick
it
they did.
into it. Well,
And it
there was a
always
while where those were really popular, the dual use, and you could
yeah,
just shift the bleachers
but
around.
it always looked weird because you could still see the dirt lines. Like especially
Hmm.
a candlestick, they did a terrible job of it where you'd actually be running over the first base line as part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Um,
Hmm.
uh, what's the biggest rivalry in sports right now of any team?
Depends if you want teams that hate each other or
Yeah,
like
like truly. No,
longest
no, no.
rivalry.
Currently, like the hottest rivalry. The
I mean, I know baseball more, so I would think Yankees and Red Sox, but
yeah,
just 'cause that goes back so long. I know there's some NFL ones that are pretty nasty too, that I just don't know the history of those quite as well. I know like, isn't it
the
like
AFC
Dallas
West is
and
pretty
Philadelphia or
crazy.
something like that?
Oh yeah. The Philadelphia Cowboys one is has always been pretty nasty. The Giants, everybody with the Cowboys, I guess. But the AFC West has always been pretty crazy too. Like, or the old AFC West, I guess. The Chiefs and the Raiders, the
Hmm.
Broncos and the Chiefs. Um,
I know like Atlanta and New Orleans is a
yeah,
big thing too.
yeah. The you mentioned the Yankees this year, they got in several brawls with the Orioles. And so that one seems really hot right now too.
I feel
Uh,
like that was big for a while when the Orioles were good back and maybe in the 90s at one point. When what was it? In one of the playoff games that uh was it Jeter hit a home run? The kid in the stands like robbed a home run from an Orioles player. I think it was a playoff game.
oh
Like the
no.
guy reached up to catch the ball and this kid like reached over and knocked it into the stands and the umpire called it a home run. Saying,
Oh,
and they were like holding the kid up and celebrating, and I think it was at New York, and I remember that was a big deal.
I don't
Trying to
remember
remember what
that
that
one.
was again. I think that was against Baltimore, though.
Those always kill me. Those always kill me. Like wonder when you said Rob it sent me to back to the Cubs with Steve Bartman and like how that guy is still living his life. I think he still works for the same company.
I thought he lost everything, like basically, and had to move and all that. Because I remember looking at, I watched a
Really?
documentary
Oh,
about
really?
him. They completely ran him out of town, basically.
I mean, I would believe that because that's like one of the worst things ever. He got treated so unfairly because like it's not. I don't even remember him going that far over the fence to get it. Like, and there
It
was like
wasn't.
2 other people that tried to get it. He just happened to be.
Hmm. The documentary I saw was talking with the guy who was sitting right behind him, whose hand was out, trying to get the ball also. And like basically when he was talking about, I think he was talking about how when the crowd started to turn on him, he just kind of like got out of there, basically
What
left.
I the in the documentary didn't they dress him up either like a police officer or an EMS person and
To
they
get him
walked out with
out.
him? Yeah.
They covered him up, I know, and like rushed him out with a bunch of people like that. Yeah.
Oof.
Which is it's so dumb.
So
Like it's
crazy. But I mean, you're
unbelievable.
dealing with a bunch of drunk fans that this game meant so much to them. And then the Cubs didn't do themselves any favors. It wasn't Steve Bartman's
No.
fault. Like they fell apart.
Yeah,
Just
I mean, it was the double play ball that if the guy turns it, none of that happens anyway.
yep,
Like it wouldn't have mattered one bit. It was, I think it was after that that it
it
happened.
was. Yeah,
Ground
and
ball to
they had an
their
error after
defense
that
only
too.
shortstop, and he muffed a double
He,
play ball that would have ended the inning.
uh,
But
it,
yeah, they had
my
to take the 100. I could kind of understand their anger at the time because it was the streak. You know, they
oh
hadn't
yeah,
won it in 100 years or
yeah,
whatever still,
yeah.
and I get that a little bit, but
But they just focused
how
so
you can
much
take it out
story
on.
on a lifelong Cub fan. Like he
Yeah,
didn't want to hurt the game. He loved
yeah,
the yeah. And
yeah.
the crazy thing is like apparently he had headphones in and he was listening to the radio broadcast, and the radio broadcasters are just flaming him. And like oh, you
Yeah.
that had to be very scary.
Hmm.
It my 3 second Google search says that CNN through Bartman spokesman reported in 2016 he still lived in Chicago and worked for a financial firm.
Well, okay.
I don't know. That's 8 years ago,
I
but
thought they made him move out of town, but maybe he just moved to a different part or something like that and still lived in
yeah,
Chicago somewhere.
I don't know. I have to look that up. Yeah, that's crazy. All right,
Hmm. So
but
one more thing I did
yeah.
find, Jeffrey Mayer is the kid's name. It was 96 and Derek Jeter was the one who hit the ball. It was game one of the ALCS against the Orioles.
And so they got the home run because a Yankees fan pulled it in, and the
Yep.
Orioles, did they lose the game because of that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I don't know if it was
oh,
because. Oh, well, sorry. Yes, it was because it says Yankees trailed 4-3 in the bottom of the eighth when it happened. And
and
I
so
mean, there's a picture of it. If you look it up, it's the outfielder standing like this with the kid's arms directly above the ball.
Jeffrey Mayer. So that's the opposite of Bartman, where like he got lauded as a hero because he
Hmm.
kept him from.
Yep.
How do you spell
Yeah,
his last
it
name?
really is the complete inverse of it.
Yeah. Oh, is
And
this
then
it?
yeah, they wanted extras after that.
Oh, it wasn't Baltimore. It was Houston, huh?
No, against Baltimore.
Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Maier.
Oh, it's not that?
Uh-uh.
Oh, no, I guess that's the Yankees on the defense. Never mind.
No.
Uh, that says 21 years later, Jeffrey Mayer gets to relive his big moment. Wait, oh, I think this is it. Yeah, I think that story had a wrong picture. Because well, this isn't the perfect moment, but something,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
It was basically that. And I think that was like a split second after. I thought I had seen a picture where it was just right as it was happening.
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, here it is. I see it. It's a New York Post thing. But yeah, it's like you see the kid right above him.
there he is.
Yep.
I'm not sure he would have caught it.
But he had
That's a
already
tall
pulled the ball
ball.
in a little bit. His glove was well out over.
Oh,
He might
yeah.
not have caught it, but it wouldn't have been a home run for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So that too. Yeah, it was a guaranteed home run then. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
crazy. Um,
Yep.
all right. Phone's gonna get mad at us. We're way over 15 minutes, but
Oh man.
this was a good talking about rivalries. All right, so uh I want some people to comment on that. Like, what is the biggest rivalry in sports right now? I know somebody's going to probably say like India, Pakistan cricket or something, but what is the biggest rivalry or the hottest rivalry? Not the biggest, not
Hmm.
the longest. Like, what's the hottest? Put it in the comments.
Yep.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. And until next week, we are out of here.